Hello again. From monk to East Side hipsters. Next up, we're talking Platonic. The Apple TV comedy series stars Rose Byrne and Seth Rogen. The pair play two former best friends, who haven't spoken in a while. Byrne plays Sylvia, a stay-at-home mom of 3, and Will, a recently divorced man with a penchant for making beer. They're trying to deal with their midlife crises and, reconnect after this long rift. So please welcome co-creators, executive producers, and writers Francesca Delbanco and Nicholas Stoller. Before we get into this, let's watch a clip.
Pretty okay fries, am I right?
Mm-hmm.
I forgot you get like this when you're high.
I'm not that high.
Not that high. So what's it like to be in a healthy marriage? Is that cool?
Okay.
It's good?
Mm-hmm.
Charlie was always pretty perfect.
That's right. He just gets happier.
He's just gets happier.
Mm-hmm.
That's a nightmare.
Like, this is really his moment.
This is his moment.
Loves being a grown-up.
He loves being a grown-up.
So good at being a dad.
He's good at being a dad.
He's also good at husband.
I didn't understand that at all.
It just makes it look easy and... I kind of look like a mess next to him.
You? It makes you look like a mess? You? Impossible. No one in a napkin bib can be a mess by definition. You've taken preventive measures.
I feel like I should ask you what it's like to be a happily married couple as a result of that, but I won't. Francesca, let's start with you. You've said that this story is relatively personal to you, is that right?
It is relatively personal. I mean, the impetus for the idea of this series really came from my own life, from thinking about how I had several very close friendships with guys when I was a kid and a teenager and in college and in my 20s, and that a moment sort of came in life basically when people started coupling up and getting married and having families, where it suddenly seemed as if those friendships were harder to maintain and were sort of looked at with some suspicion by the world around me, and that women sort of grouped together in places like schools and social settings and talked to each other about what it was to be a woman in midlife, and men sort of seemed to do the same thing, and it was harder and harder to bridge that divide. And thinking about it in my own life made me feel like I can't possibly be the only person who's had this experience. And then it turned out when we started thinking about it and talking about it as a TV show, everyone could kind of relate to it.
Aside from the logistical things that you just said, people getting married and having kids, but did you unpack the question of why it's looked down on, why it's sort of suspicious for a man and a woman to just be friends?
I mean, that is kind of all we think about and talk about in our writer's room, I think. It's fair to say. And obviously, there are a million complicated reasons. And I think it does become much more complex as people grow up and have like the intimacy of a married partner. It makes it feel somehow like reaching across those gender lines can sometimes be a betrayal of some kind, even if it isn't like a romantic relationship. It can feel a little bit strange. And I mean, there have definitely been times in our lives where, like, I have some very close friends who are guys who I've been friends with forever, and, we went away to Las Vegas a few years ago, me and two friends of mine who were guys, and everybody acted to...
That weekend, everyone was like, where's Francesca? And I was like, she's in Vegas with her two guy friends. They were like, what? And I was like, yeah, that's where she is, and,
Like, as if there were something very illicit or untoward going on. And it wasn't. It was me catching up with old friends, but it was sort of, it felt sort of transgressive.
And I remember, too, and this will sound political, but it isn't. I remember when everyone was making fun of the fact that Mike Pence was like, I would never go to dinner with a woman without my wife. And everyone was like, can you believe this? And I would be like, name one time in the past year that you've gone to dinner with a woman, if you're a man, without your wife. And like, no one can. So it's,
You mean mother, though, don't you?
Yes, mother, exactly.
The mother thing is a separate issue. We're gonna put that to the side. That's not part of this conversation, but yes.
But the reason with Rose's character, Sylvia, and Seth's Will, this isn't a sort of will they, won't they. I think that's the sort of, you half expect them, a lot of these types of stories to be, oh, maybe they'll hook up, or maybe they did hook up. But in this, it's very much just, no, they were buddies.
I mean, it is the lowest fi idea in history. There's no suspense or tension about will they or won't they. They just don't. They're just buddies. But we kind of thought it was important to try to represent that, like the possibility that men and women can be friends with each other, and that those friendships can provide something that friendships with someone of your own gender might not provide, or not, something extra. And that they have an important place in like a mature life, and that they don't necessarily have to be a source of like great suspicion or anxiety.
Yeah. Nick, you worked with Seth and Rose on Neighbours. In that, they were very much married. Was this sort of thinking, okay, Rose and Seth get along really well, we're going to break them up and put them in a new series? Talk about the process of working with them.
Yeah, I mean, from the beginning, we, when you thought of the idea, we were like, well, Rose is a comic genius, and we're going to approach her first. And then she was fortunately interested in the project, and we asked her who she would want to do it with, and she was like, well, Seth. And I was like, that's a really good impression of her. And so then I was like, I didn't, at the time I was like, I don't know if he wants to do, but he loves working with her. It's rare to find that sort of comic chemistry with someone, and they're both such experienced actors that they understand how special it is to have that sort of chemistry and that trust. And they also like really, trust working with like the two of us. And so I think it was pretty fast in terms of getting everyone on board once that, yeah.
The accent made me think, Sylvia is Australian, right? Most people would make her American in this, but she is very much Australian.
Yeah, I mean, I just like her. I like actors in comedies particularly to just do their born accent. It is a theory of mine based not on these specific actors that then you can, if you're doing an accent at all times, that part of your brain can't be funny. Like it turns off a little part of your brain. You can still be funny, but a little part of your brain. And so we were like, let's just have you do your, and she's an amazing actress. It would be hilarious if she was doing an American accent. That's not about her, but that's just my own kind of.
But also, her accent is so charming. Yeah. And it
also
just
love her
adds,
accent.
I just feel like she is the most charming person, and she really inhabits this role with a lot of charm, and the accent only adds to it for us.
It's I didn't hear what I said. It's rare to have an R-rated comedy on television, right? We used to get this in the movies a lot, but on TV not so much. Was that intentional for what you were going with here?
Yeah, I mean, I think Seth said early on, he was like, "This, if a number of years ago, this would be a version of this would be a movie, and now the place to do this sort of comedy is on TV, or it's an additional place to this sort of comedy, and so that felt like a natural fit."
Yeah, there's the story that we were just talking about, the sort of unpacking this idea between male and female friendships, but then there's the absurdity in the show. There's a ketamine trip. There's Seth's Coyote Ugly dance. I think there's a bearded dragon rescue at some point. How do you sort of balance those two?
I mean, for us, we're writing season 2 right now, and for us, that really is the fun of the show. Is like it is a very emotionally grounded, we feel, show about real life in all of its boring frustrations and mundane challenges every day. And it's fun for us to try to mix that up with the kind of like crazy hijinks and adventures that give the show its color and make it come alive in a way, so it's not just like people sitting in the kitchen talking about like what they're going to have for dinner tonight. So it does, it's very deliberate on our part to try to make it feel real, but make it feel kind of fun, I would say.
And they can be pretty mean to each other. I think Will calls Sylvia a miserable stay-at-home mom, and she says he's a pretentious hipster who's bleaching his problems away. There's some.
Yeah, they're jerks to each other. But I think that's part of their friendship, is that they can be honest with each other, and that honesty is so important and such an amazing thing to have in someone else. And so I think that is where some of the And that's also where some of the heat comes from, because it can't come from sex.
Is it you guys or is it Seth that's got something against those scooters on the road? They kick over a lot of these scooters.
I think we all have something against them. I mean, we were just talking about it.
Yeah, right? That's right, yeah.
The feeling of walking out of our front door with our children in the morning for school and seeing that 2 people have left their scooter trash on our lawn fills us with a kind of rage that is maybe not proportional to the crime. But it was very satisfying to us to put that in there, and then Seth really took it and ran with it, scooted with it.
Yeah. My rage is starting, it's not at scooter level, but it's starting to grow about those little weird robots that are driving everywhere. I'm a little bit like, I'm about to start kicking you over, buddy.
I had one of those and it asked for a tip.
Oh, really?
It asked for a tip once you've taken the food out of it. It feels...
What did you do?
I didn't tip it.
Well played.
As someone who lives on the east side of LA, I told you this, I live on the east side. It felt rather triggering. It felt nice to be seen, but it did feel like you were living inside my head at various points. Did you just have a bad night in Echo Park or something?
We really were very excited to try to put LA into a TV show in the way it really feels when you live here. So much is shot here and so much is made here, and I often feel when I watch TV and movies that I don't really recognize the place where I live, and we felt like it was kind of time to try to do that. And we had made a show before this show that was set in New York, and we had so much fun using New York in that show, and we were like, this will be even better because we can stay at home, but do the same thing for LA, we felt like.
Yeah, you said you shot it in sort of 4 blocks in downtown, right? Yeah. End of season 1, spoiler a little bit, but Will's about to get married, and Sylvia's running her own wedding planning business. You just said there you're in the middle of writing season 2. Can we expect those 2 stories to continue? Can you give us a bit of a peek in terms of where we might find them?
Yeah, I mean, it will be the same kind of serialized, lo-fi serialized storytelling that we did the first season. And so, yes, we are continuing what we set up in the first season.
Is it tough to do that? Because the premise of this is very much this couple that haven't seen each other for a while. They become friends, they fall out, and they sort of, by the end of season 1, are friends again. If you keep doing that, it kind of be a bit tricky, right? Have you kind of got to grips with that?
There's been an apocalypse in between the 2 seasons, so no, there isn't. Sorry, I realize that there are apocalyptic shows on it. No, it is a challenge. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say yes is the answer. It is tricky to do it. I mean, we wrote the season and finished it and liked where we had left it off, and are now opening it up again and trying to deal with what everyone deals with in a season 2, which is we want to do more of the same thing. We know it has to be a little bit different, so it doesn't just feel like the same season again, but essentially it has to be a story about their friendship and their lives and their relationship to each other and how they help or hurt each other as they go along. So it's kind of that again.
Yeah.
And these 2 characters have their insecurities and their issues, and those won't be solved by a marriage and starting a wedding planning business. You know, and so that's what, as we've discussed in the room, you're like, how? And then we're like, oh, they're still the same. We're all always the same messed up people at all times, and so no matter what you do, you're still dealing with those issues.
Yes. We're talking about LA, but the season ends in San Diego. Are we going to move to San Diego, or are we going to stay in Los Angeles?
We have some San Diego and we have some Los Angeles, and we have mostly Los Angeles.
Mostly Los Angeles. More of
It's a Los Angeles show. I mean, that's where it lives. Yeah.
It's a Los Angeles show. You've known Seth since he was a teenager, right? On Undeclared. Do you write for the 2 of them? They do have this connection we were saying on Neighbors. Is it sort of Rose and Seth when you're trying to figure out this, or can you put the characters Sylvia and Will in it?
Oh, when we're breaking the stories? I mean, they're so now inseparable from the characters, but a lot of the writing is more character based because they are playing these characters. They're not these people, you know. And so I think we do talk more about the characters. I mean, every once in a while we'll be like, oh, Rose would really love this bit, or like Seth would really love this idea. But it's more character based.
But it is also true that the advantage of writing for actors who you've known for a long time, and like it's a joy to write crazy physical comedy for Rose because we just know how well she'll do with it. So sometimes in the writer's room, we'll just go and go and go with that kind of a bit because we would love to watch her do it in a way.
Well, I look forward to seeing what crazy stuff you make them do in season 2. Francesca and Nick, everyone, please give it up.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.